The late morning sun bathed Windsor Castle in a warm, golden hue, its ancient stone walls standing tall against a backdrop of clear blue skies. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees, carrying the faint scent of freshly cut grass across the bustling courtyard just outside the castle gates. Tourists from across the globe gathered in clusters, their voices a lively mix of accents: Spanish, Mandarin, German, mingling with the occasional shutter of a camera capturing the castle's towering turrets and the iconic round tower. Families posed for photos, children clutched guidebooks with wide-eyed wonder, and couples strolled hand in hand, soaking in the history that seeped from every corner of this royal stronghold. Near the entrance to the lower ward, a royal guard stood at his post, a striking figure in his scarlet tunic and towering bearskin hat, his polished boots gleaming in the sunlight. His face was a mask of discipline, his gaze fixed straight ahead, his hands steady at his sides, but beneath the ceremonial exterior lay a vigilance honed by years of military service. A vigilance that had seen him through far more dangerous assignments than guarding a tourist hotspot. Amid the crowd was a street vendor named Marco, a wiry man in his early 40s with a weathered face and a bright smile, his thick Italian accent cutting through the noise as he called out to passers-by. Marco had been a fixture near Windsor Castle for years, his small wooden cart brimming with fresh fruits, oranges, apples, and strawberries, arranged in neat pyramids that glistened like jewels in the sunlight. He'd parked his cart just a few meters from the guard's post, a spot he'd chosen for its high-foot traffic, hoping to catch the eye of hungry tourists looking for a quick snack. His cart was old, its wheels wobbly from years of use, but Marco had a knack for balancing it just right, even on the uneven cobblestones. Today, though, he was distracted. His teenage daughter, Elena, had texted him about a school project, and as he fumbled with his phone to reply, he didn't notice the cart's slight tilt, the way it teetered on the edge of disaster with every gust of wind. The crowd buzzed with energy, oblivious to the vendor's predicament. A group of American tourists in matching baseball caps haggled with Marco over the price of a bag of strawberries, while a young French couple shared an orange, peeling it with careful fingers as they leaned against a nearby railing, their laughter soft and intimate. A school group from London, their teacher herding them like a flock of sheep, marched past, the children's backpacks bouncing as they pointed at the guard, whispering about his bearskin hat and whether he was allowed to move. The guard remained a statue, his posture unyielding, his dark eyes scanning the courtyard with a precision that missed nothing. Not the child dropping a candy wrapper, not the tourist adjusting her oversized sun hat, not the faint creak of Marco's cart as it shifted ever so slightly on the uneven ground. Then it happened. A stronger gust of wind swept through the courtyard, catching the cart at just the wrong angle. Marco, still engrossed in his phone, didn't react in time as the cart tipped, its wheels giving way with a groan. The wooden structure lurched forward, then crashed onto its side with a resounding thud, the sound echoing off the castle walls like a thunderclap. Oranges spilled out in a cascade of bright citrus, rolling across the cobblestones in every direction, a vibrant flood of color that seemed to move with a life of its own. Some bounced harmlessly into the crowd, eliciting shrieks of surprise, while others rolled straight toward the guard, a relentless tide of fruit that showed no mercy. One orange struck the guard's polished boot with a soft thump, another rolled to a stop just inches from his feet, and a third, a particularly large one, bounced off the cobblestones and hit the edge of his tunic, leaving a faint smear of juice on the scarlet fabric. The crowd froze, their chatter dying in an instant, replaced by a collective gasp that hung heavy in the air. Marco dropped his phone, his face paling as he scrambled to right the cart, his hands trembling as he scooped up the scattered fruit, muttering apologies in broken English. The tourists nearest the guard stepped back, their eyes wide, their phones already out to capture the unfolding chaos. The schoolchildren erupted into giggles, quickly hushed by their teacher, who shot a nervous glance at the guard, her hands gripping her clipboard tighter. The French couple paused mid-bite, their orange forgotten as they watched, while the American tourists whispered among themselves, one of them speculating in a hushed tone about whether the guard would finally break character. The air crackled with anticipation, the playful scene now tinged with a tension that felt almost palpable, as if the courtyard itself were holding its breath. The guard's gaze remained fixed, but a flicker of something, irritation perhaps or disbelief, crossed his face, so subtle that only the closest onlookers noticed. His scar, a thin line etched across his temple from a long-ago skirmish in a desert far from Windsor, caught the light, a silent testament to the battles he'd fought, the discipline he'd earned. He had faced ambushes in moonless nights, carried injured comrades through hostile territory, and stood firm against threats far greater than a wayward orange. Yet this moment, this absurd, citrusy assault on his dignity, tested him in a way no battlefield ever had. The juice stain on his tunic, the sticky residue on his boot, the rolling oranges at his feet. It was an affront to the order he embodied, a challenge to the stoic facade he was trained to maintain. His jaw tightened, his gloved hands twitching slightly at his sides as he fought the urge to react, to break protocol, to do anything that might betray the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. Marco, now on his knees, gathered the oranges as quickly as he could, his face flushed with embarrassment, his voice a frantic stream of apologies as he glanced nervously at the guard. So sorry," he stammered, his hands slippery with juice, his cart still lying on its side, a sad heap of splintered wood and scattered fruit. The crowd's reactions were a chaotic mix. Some tourists laughed nervously, others gasped in shock, and a few began filming, their phones trained on the guard as they whispered about the fruit attack going viral. A teenage girl in a bright yellow jacket visiting with her family giggled uncontrollably, earning a sharp look from her mother, while an older man with a walking stick shook his head, muttering about the lack of respect for tradition. The schoolchildren, now barely contained, pointed and whispered, one boy daring to toss an orange back toward the pile, only to be scolded by his teacher, her face a mask of panic as she glanced at the guard. With a slow, deliberate motion, the guard bent down, just a fraction, barely breaking his rigid stance, and nudged the nearest orange away with the tip of his boot, the movement so precise it seemed almost choreographed. The action was small, but it sent a ripple through the crowd, a wave of murmurs and gasps as they realized he had acknowledged the chaos, even if only in the smallest way. His dark eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the courtyard, locking briefly on Marco, a silent reprimand that made the vendor freeze, an orange slipping from his grasp to roll away once more. The guard's scar seemed to stand out more starkly in the sunlight, a reminder of the man beneath the uniform, a man who had once led a squad through a hail of gunfire, who had earned commendations for his bravery, who had seen chaos far worse than this and emerged unbroken. But this moment, this ridiculous, fruit-filled disruption, was a different kind of test, one that challenged his ability to remain a symbol of order in the face of absurdity. Two more guards appeared from the castle gates, their boots echoing on the cobblestones as they approached with military precision, their faces stern and unreadable, their rifles held at the ready. They moved to restore order, one gesturing for the crowd to step back, his voice a low command that cut through the murmurs, while the other approached Marco, indicating for him to gather his belongings and leave the area. Marco nodded frantically, his hands shaking as he righted his cart, the remaining fruit spilling onto the ground in his haste, his livelihood now a mess of juice and broken wood. The crowd parted to let him through, their whispers following him, some sympathetic, others judgmental, a few tourists even snapping photos of the vendor as he retreated, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The schoolchildren giggled again, their teacher now leading them away, her voice sharp as she tried to regain control, while the teenage girl in the yellow jacket posted her video online, the hashtag number Windsor Oranges already gaining traction. The original guard returned to his post, his tunic still bearing the faint stain of orange juice, his bearskin hat slightly askew from the earlier impact but now adjusted with a precise motion. His posture was as rigid as ever, a pillar of tradition amidst the chaos that had unfolded, but a faint tension lingered in his stance. A subtle clenching of his jaw, a flicker of irritation in his eyes, a silent testament to the disruption he had endured. The crowd dispersed slowly, their excitement giving way to whispers of awe and unease, their perception of the guard forever altered. They had come to Windsor Castle expecting a glimpse of royal history, a moment of tradition to capture in photos and share with friends. Instead, they had witnessed a display of raw, disciplined resolve, a reminder that even in the face of a citrusy mess, strength and authority stood firm, unyielding, a force no fruit could topple.